The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the Church Accounting Showdown for February 27th, 2014. Our agenda for this afternoon will start out with some introductions of your hosts and presenters, go over a couple of housekeeping issues, and then we'll get into the meat of this webinar. First off, we'll talk about some of the issues that we often hear when we talk to churches about accounting and the accounting IT related issues. Then we'll talk about specifically Dynamics GP and Intacct. They're both accounting applications that are both good fits for churches, we have found, but they are quite different. So we'll talk about some of the difference between the two. And then following that, we'll do some actual demonstrations of Dynamics GP as well as Intacct. And we'll wrap up by talking about a integration we have with the church management system or the people database called Proclaim CRM. That works with Intacct and Proclaim CRM. And we'll have some time for some general Q&A at the end. We have 60 minutes budgeted for this, so we should be able to wrap up right at 3 o'clock Eastern. My name is George Delp, and I'll be your host this afternoon. And I have experience working with churches of all sizes, small local churches, some of the top 10 mega churches around the country. And the people doing the actual demonstrations of the products, the first one is Brian Dodd. And he has experience, he's going to represent Intacct, and he has experience with both QuickBooks and Intacct, which is a plus, because honestly, a lot of our Intacct customers are upgrades from QuickBooks. Assisting Brian, or actually going right before Brian, is going to be Chelsea Schlepp, and she is one of our Dynamics GP specialists. She has many years implementing Dynamics GP, so she'll walk us through that. And then Alan Camp will also help out with any potential issues in the Q&A process. He works with our inside sales group here at Proclaim CRM. Now, Proclaim CRM, our company is actually called Interdyne Artist, and Proclaim CRM is our church management product. And then we have sister divisions that do the accounting software. We bring it all together here in a webinar like this to a lot of our people management customers are interested in accounting, so here we are. Now, a couple of housekeeping issues. You should have the GoToWebinar toolbar on your screen. You can ask questions in that. So if you have any problems, seeing or hearing, please type a question. We'll assist you immediately. Also, throughout the presentation, if you have a question, go ahead and type that. And we'll stop periodically, as well as at the end, and go through as many questions as we can. If we get too many, we'll stay late, but that's how we're going to address those. Now, when you signed up, you had the opportunity to ask questions. So we only had one sign-up question this time. And the question was, do you have a donor tracking system linked to accounting software? And of course, yes, we do, and that's the Proclaim CRM that I mentioned before. And I'll talk a little bit about that at the end. So with that, Alan, are we good to go? Is everybody?
It looks like we're good to go with this one, George.
All right, thank you very much. So when we talk about the issues that we hear, I'm going to break it into 3 categories. The finance team, the leadership team, and the information technology or IT team. From the finance department, some of the things we hear, reconciling contribution data is hard. Why is it hard? It's hard because it generally comes from another system, and sometimes it's not imported in a way that facilitates the bank reconciliation process. We have ways to batch things properly by payment type so that it makes that process a lot more bearable. You'll hear a common theme through the next couple of slides. People always are complaining about running reports or pulling their own data. We'll show you dashboards and query tools as part of this presentation this afternoon. It's probably going to be the highlight of what you see. It's just easy to get data out of both systems. Multiple locations. You go back 20 years, there weren't that many multi-location churches. There's a whole lot of them now. And a lot of older software doesn't do so great with that. But both of the solutions we'll show you today, they handle multi-location out of the box. No customizations or finagling needed with that. And then, of course, fund and grant management. QuickBooks has an NFP edition, but a lot of people just use the basic one, and it's not really set up for fund accounting all the time. So we'll show you how we handle fund accounting issues as well. The leadership issues that we hear, again, it's real similar. I can't get data out. I'm not happy with the data I get. The data I get is slow. The data I get is not accurate. So it really boils down to a lot of reporting. One of the things we'll make sure to show you today is, how you can provide self-serve reporting to lessen the burden on your finance staff. And then finally, IT issues. Integration is it's pretty high up there, unless you're using one of those. I mean, there are some systems out there that offer both accounting and church management, but the modern trend seems to be kind of best-in-breed solutions, where you'll get a great people management married with a great accounting, but they do need to integrate. This next point, it's really the cloud versus on-premise debate. So I'll speak to more about that on the next slide. And conversely, I wish I had more control over my data. Sometimes people are frustrated when they do use a cloud solution because they don't have true access to the database. And there's ways around that too. Most cloud solutions are shared. So since they're shared, you don't get access to the actual database. But with Proclaim CRM, we offer that model. I mean, honestly, it's a little cheaper, but you can get your own dedicated cloud instance of Proclaim CRM and thereby have full access to your database. So what's this whole cloud versus on-premise debate all about? Well, there's a lot of issues, and I'm this is real high level here, but it's some of the, I think, points that help you kind of decide between one or the other. What are the main differences? So on-premise is hosted on your own computer. That means you have to have a server, you have to have it connected to the network, you have to maintain the operating system and update it when patches come out, especially security patches. You have to have a backup procedure that works. You have to have somewhere you store those backups. You have to have an IT person on staff or a part-time staff, or you have to contract with an IT company to help you maintain all of that generally. The cloud, it makes it a whole lot simpler. All you really need to do is have computers with internet browsers connected to the internet. So there's something to be said there. Generally, our customers that go with on-premise solutions are, I'm talking top 40 probably mega church size where they have their own IT staff and server rooms, server farms and such, where it makes sense because there's no incremental cost. They just throw on another application, they're good to go. On-premise solutions generally have a higher upfront hit. You buy the software and then you pay a small annual maintenance amount, whereas with the cloud solution, it's either a monthly or annual fee, but it is generally a medium forever cost. So, if you go 10, 15 years, the actual software cost on-premise is going to be less, but then you have to factor in all the hardware stuff. So oftentimes it'll break even, but the cloud's just sometimes so much easier to maintain since you don't have to do all of the hardware stuff. Sometimes, I mentioned the getting at your data issue. There are ways around that with the cloud if you need that. But sometimes it is easier to customize the system or make it your own with on-premise solutions. Cloud systems, it varies on what kind of cloud software you're looking at. There's lots of cloud softwares out there. You may be using some. Google Docs, that's a cloud software solution. The new Office 365. There's lots of payroll service providers. Most of those offer cloud services as well now. So those are just some of the major differences that we see. And hopefully, if you are considering one or the other, they might help you through your decision-making process. Which is right for you. If you have existing information technology infrastructure and access to IT staff, going on-premise might make a lot of sense. On your cash flow demands, that can also support one model or the other. And if you're going to have real unique requirements, and again, with most churches, the accounting side is usually out of the box. It's on the people management side that we see more customization requirements. So with that, we're going to dive into the actual demonstrations now. Alan, do we have any comments or questions?
No, George, let's dive in.
Okay. Well, for this, we're going to take a look at Dynamics GP first. And as I promised, we'll look at some dashboards and reporting, take a look at Smart List, which is a nice query tool, and then give you a look at some of the basic accounting modules. And to do presenting this portion will be Chelsea Schlepp.
Thank you, George. Let's see here. So you guys should be able to see my screen right now. It's my GP homepage. One of the big things we hear, perfect. One of the big things we hear with users who are outgrowing or unhappy with their current accounting system is the lack of reporting and dashboards. So that's where I wanted to start today. So I've configured my personal GP homepage to make it my own dashboard. You can see the charts and graphs that I have here on my dashboard. There are over 150 of these that come out of the box with GP, and you can create any that you want on your own. Now, my dashboard here is specific to what I want to see. All of the users of GP can customize their own dashboard. And also, these charts and graphs are available to non-GP users as well. There are some other ways that they can get to it. So if you have executive management or people in your organization that are not accounting users, they can still see this data. Now, these are very powerful because they're real-time data. As we do transactions within GP, we are able to see this data refresh and have a real-time picture of all of our financials. Another thing that makes these so powerful is that I can open these graphs in my web browser. Now, this is one of the ways that your outside GP users can view it. But one of the things that's nice here is I can see, you can see this is my payable summary, and I've got data points that indicate how many invoices and payments and so forth that I have out here. I can see that I have 89, and if I click on that data point, it actually provides me with a list. I can drill back into those 89 invoices. From here, I can search for one. So if I want to look for Duke Power, which is my power vendor, I can just search. It'll take me down to that record. I have a small expansion button right here that gives me summary information about that vendor, things like payment terms or current balance. From here, I can also drill into any of the items that are blue on this screen. So if I want to see my invoice, all I need to do is click on it, and it pulls up the transaction from GP itself. Now, the GP window drill back is obviously only available to GP users, but your other users can get all the way up to that point. So other things that you can see on my home page here are to-do. My to-do section, that's the next one I want to talk about. My to-do section has two sections within it, reminders and tasks. My reminders are things based on my GP data. So you can see I have payables due, P&L accounts to review, and I've chosen to represent these as what we call visual cues. And what's nice about these is it allows me to have a quick glance and see that I have a lot of items that I need to be doing. My other section here is called tasks, and I also have two types of tasks. The first one here is called an alert, and what that allows me to do is have basically a reminder or a task of something that I need to do based on a GP event. So what I've done for this one is I've set up that anytime I receive a deposit over $1,000, I get a task. So it's a reminder to me that I need to go and look at it, or just that I want to know that it happened. You can do this based on any GP event. So if you have a GL account that you don't want people charging or doing journal entries against, and you can create a task that will alert you when they do so that you can address it right away. The other one that I have here is really just a customizable task. So this one's process weekly donations. If I click on it, you'll see it's just a text field that I can type anything that I want to remind myself or anyone else of. I have a due date here, a recurrence similar to an Outlook reminder, and I also have this section here where I can assign it to a different user or myself. I'm going to choose to change this one, assign it to Joe. And then as I come out and refresh my home page, you'll see that that's gone because now it's gone to Joe's home page to remind him that he has a task to do. The next section down I have is quick links, and this is basically my favorite. So I can have GP windows, outside programs, outside files, and even websites here in my quick links. Now I'm going to use quick links throughout the demo today to illustrate how it works. So the first quick link that I'm going to go to is Management Reporter. And Management Reporter is the built-in financial system that comes with Dynamics GP to run your financials. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how that works. You can see over here on the left of my screen, I have several different folders, which are locations within my organization. Now, the nice thing about this is I can set up any folders that I want and grant security to them any way I want. So, for example, in my Pineville folder, I have reports that I only want my Pineville location to see, and only my Pineville users have access to that location. So when they log in, they only see these reports. For today, we're going to go to administration because I want to show you all of the reports together. So the first one I want to start off with is income statement by fund. And again, you can see on the left, I have what we call a tree. And what that means is at the top level, I have a summary of all units. So that's the report we're seeing right now over here on the right. This summarizes all of my units. So this is the financials combining all of my funds. However, I can click on each individual fund, and it'll just show me the report for that particular fund. Now, additionally, another feature that I have in Management Reporter is drill back information. So I can come to this 3810 and double click, and it takes me further into that line. So here's my chart. Here's my account for my chart of accounts. My segment 1 indicates my fund. My segment 2 is my natural account, and my segment 3 is location. So you can see I'm in the Special Projects Fund, and I'm at the Donations Unrestricted account. So those are all the same. But where it differs is the location. So this is actually indicating how much of that those donations came from each of my locations. Another report that I want to show you is my income statement by month. So this is a little bit different. You can see there's no drill down or different trees here, but you certainly can do that if you'd like to. Just trying to show a different way of creating these reports. What I want to show you on this report, are just some different things that you can do. So I can create my columns to show, month by month comparison instead of year to date versus budget, or however I want to do that. One of the things that I've learned in my past accounting experience is that if you have a line item like this on your income statement and it's under miscellaneous income, you may get 20 or 30 phone calls from whoever looks at your reports asking what that item is. So with Management Reporter, you have a great way of dealing with that. I can highlight this line, come up to the top and click Comment, and this allows me to enter a comment for this line. So this was actually a rental fee for the facility. I can click OK, and it populates it over here on the right. So now what happens is that anyone that comes into this report, when they look at it, they see that note right away. So they don't have to spend the time calling me, and I don't have to spend the time fielding 20 or 30 questions. Another neat feature here in Management Reporter is that on any row or column, I can select it and create a chart. I can also pin this over to the side where my comments are so that people can see my report and the graphs associated with them for any one line or column. And this will stay out there as long as we keep it out there. Okay, so moving back into GP, the next reporting tool that I want to talk about is SmartList. Now, George mentioned this. It's our query tool. This is a great way to just pull the data that you need out of the system. It's not a pre-built report. This can get you any information that you need. I'm going to go to one that I created called Donations. But as you notice, all of these other ones have asterisks, and that means they're out of the box. What that means is that you have a lot of out-of-the-box reports to get what you need. And they're very easy to customize, and I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So I'm pulling up my donations. You can see I have a list of each of the donations, of the journal entries of the donations, and the account number that they were charged to. Now, if you don't know all of your account numbers by memory, you may want to see the account description on there. So that's easy enough to do. I just click on columns, click Add. I have a lot of different columns that I can add for any of my reports. I'm going to move my account description up here next to my account number. And it's going to automatically refresh when I hit OK and put my account description in there. Now I have that information. Another thing I notice is, I'm showing journal entries, so I have an offsetting cash account for each one of my entries. And I know they all went to cash, so maybe I don't want to see that. So I can go to Search, and I can add a restriction. So I'll do account number. And I'm going to do this as not equal to, but just to show you, you have a lot of other options as far as filter, contains, equal to, and so forth. So I'm going to say is not equal to. I have my cash account right down here. I'm just going to type that number in here and then hit OK. And you'll see now I just have the listing of my revenue. Now, one of the great features of GP is that it is a Microsoft product. And what that means is that it's got a very tight integration with other Microsoft products. So what I can do from here is I can click this Excel button that I have up at the top, and it's going to automatically push all that data into Excel for me and open up an Excel spreadsheet. So I can send this to someone else if I need to. Now, if you have some of these that you're sending to somebody every single month, it may be more beneficial for them to get them themselves. GP has another feature that is called Excel reports, refreshable Excel reports. And you can deploy those to your file server or anywhere that you want to have them. You have folders that show you each of your modules. I'm going to open up purchasing because that's where my payables and my vendors live. I'm going to go with vendor balances, give you another example here. And you can see as I open this up, it automatically refreshes and shows me my vendor information and their current balance. Now this is real-time data. This is a live connection to the database. So without being in GP, I can get this data on a real-time basis. All right, so that touches on our reporting in GP. So what I want to do now is get into some of the windows in the software. So we're going to start off in the vendor window. I'm going to just pull up the first vendor here, talk a little bit about our windows in GP. This is fairly similar to how they all look. You have the same types of buttons and lookups on each screen. One of the nice things here in the vendor window and in any of your maintenance cards is you can enter certain information, tax schedule, address IDs, and those will automatically default onto transactions as you're entering transactions for that vendor. So it's nice to save you a little time and extra keying. Another feature that comes from the tight integration between Microsoft products is this write letter feature. Now, I can come in here and I can say prepare a vendor letter. I've got a list of some out-of-the-box letters. I can also create any letter that I want to send to a vendor or any other record that you may have in your system, employee, so forth. Creating these on your own is really as simple as just creating a Word document. So it's very simple to do. So I'm going to choose Request for W-9. When I hit Next, it pops up the vendors to receive the letter. Now, because I clicked the Write Letters button while I had a vendor populated, it's giving me that vendor. If I had done it with this window blank, it would give me an option to do any or all of my vendors. I hit Next and it has my information, and I click Finish, and it just takes a minute, and it pops up my vendor letters, so that I can now email or print and send out to my vendors. Now, also in your vendor maintenance window, you have this button which gives you internet address information. This lets you store information such as your vendor's website. If you have an organizational login for your vendor that you want to share throughout the company, you can put that information here. And it also has a section for email addresses. What this allows you to do is email things such as purchase orders or payment remittances directly out of GP to your vendors. And the last thing I want to talk about on this screen is down here at the bottom, you have a blue circle with a white question mark in it. And this is available on every screen in GP. What this does is this opens up your help menu, and specifically your help menu for the screen that you're in. It gives you an overview of the window as well as fields and buttons so that you can come in and see what everything does in that window. So if you have a field you're not sure what it does, you can come in here and they'll give you suggestions as to what you should put in that field. Okay, moving on to your chart of accounts and general ledger. Now, GP does posting accounts. We handle unit accounts, which are your non-financial accounts. And then we also handle what are called allocation accounts, and that's what I want to show you today. Now I'm going to pull up a fixed allocation account for my power. So what this is gives me a general account up here at the top. You can see I have no fund and no location. But if But I want to come in here and I want to set these to a specific location based on a percentage. So I can set the percentage in here, and whenever I charge anything to this 000 account, it'll automatically allocate to the locations that I've specified based on those percentages. And I'm going to show you exactly how that looks in just a minute. One other type of allocation that we can do are variable allocations. And those are allocations that are not just on a standard percentage, but based on unit accounts. So if you're tracking something non-financial, such as square footage or employee count, you can have your expenses automatically allocate based on those non-financial amounts. So this is my GL summary window, and I'm going to go ahead and put in one of my location power accounts. And I'm going to go ahead and pull up March. I'm going to drill into my detail window, which shows me my journal entry number, and then I can drill into my journal entry. Now what you can see here is that I have my journal entry that shows a credit to my accounts payable account, which is my 2100, and then it lists down expenses hitting each of my power accounts for each location. I can drill into this even further and get back to the actual payables transaction. And in this payables transaction, I can drill to the distributions. Now you can see for this transaction, my original distribution I set to that 6100000 account, and that's all I needed to do. When it posted to the GL, it took those percentages that I had keyed in and made an automatic allocation so that I don't have to worry about calculating that every single time. So another reason I wanted to show you this is to show you, again, the great drill back functionality that you have within GP. You can get back from reporting levels or from summary levels all the way into your transactions. So as far as journal entries, this is your journal entry screen within GP. One of the reasons I wanted to talk about this was because we have the capability to do standard journal entries. We also have the capability to do reversing journal entries. It's another time-saving feature, so you don't have to go in on the first of the month and key in a new journal entry to reverse out what you've done the previous month. You just key in the dates, and it automatically does all the work for you. So in GP, you have for all of your transactions, you have the option to do individual transactions posting, or you can do batch posting. What batch posting allows you to do is group your transactions. You can do that for a number of reasons. Maybe you want to key them in and save them for later, not post them yet, or if you want someone to take a look at them or approve before you actually do post them. So in this one, I've done a batch, and the reason I just want to touch on batches for just a second is because you have a couple options as far as the frequency. Right now, this is set up as a single-use batch, which means I'm going to enter my transactions, post it, and it's going to go away. Or I can set up a recurring batch. So what this means is I could set this up as a monthly batch if the transactions in it were going to be the same every month. And then next month, all I would need to do is pull up the batch ID again and hit post. Now, if I need to make some edits, I can do that as well before I post. But it makes it a lot simpler and keeps me from having to key things in every month. A couple other things on the journal entry window. We have a correct button, which allows you to back out a journal entry. It'll make the opposite entry for you and actually tie the two together for really good auditing. You also have a copy button. And the copy button allows you to recreate a journal entry that maybe you don't have in a recurring batch, or maybe you want to start in a recurring batch. And you can then just adjust the amounts or the dates and post without having to key in all of these accounts again. All right, and then lastly, I have one other quick link to show you. And this is something I talked about in the beginning, that you can use quick links to access outside websites. So if I do a lot of banking and I need to check my balances often, I can put something like my Wells Fargo homepage in my quick links. That will allow me to get to it very quickly. So the benefit of quick links is really just to have everything you need right there on your dashboard. So that's what I wanted to show you within the GP application. We do have, we just touched on a few of the capabilities in GP, but there are a couple other modules that I wanted to mention. And George is going to show those for me in just a second and switch it back to him.
Yeah, and Chelsea, we had one question come up
Oh,
too
absolutely.
during that. It was, does the comment print on the report?
So you can view the report that way, and you can choose whether or not you want to actually, if you're exporting it or printing it, you can choose whether or not you want the comment to print.
So the answer is yes, you have the option to print with or without.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and then so just the other couple of modules here, just to mention quickly, requisitioning, we allow you to request items for purchasing, route them for approval within your organization. We have a full fixed asset management suite, which allows you to integrate with AP, purchasing, and the general ledger. What that allows you to do is, acquire, manage, depreciate, and retire your assets all seamlessly throughout the system. And we also have an HR and payroll module. And those allow you to track employee information, and if you're interested in running your payroll in-house, you can do that as well. Now, this is by no means an exhaustive list of all the modules. There are more modules than I can probably name in an hour for GP. But what I wanted to point out these ones is because these actually do come with GP without any additional investment on the software side. Okay. So do we have any other questions?
No, I think we're good. Thank you, Chelsea. That was great.
Thank you.
So we're going to now switch gears and take a look at Intacct, and Brian Dodd will be your presenter for that. And it'll be a similar format. We'll take a look at the dashboards, some of the reporting tools, and also a brief look at the core accounting modules, general ledger and accounts payable. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian.
Thank you, George. As long as everybody can hear me and see my screen okay?
You might want to hit the, there we go.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us this afternoon. We're going to go through a lot of different things here, so I'm just going to go ahead and jump right into a brief look at the Intacct accounting solution. We have a lot of exciting features to look at, and to begin with, I'm going to start out the same way that we did with our GP demo, right on our dashboards. You'll notice that we can have a variety of different things here. We can have charts and graphs, different reports, and even action items like approving purchasing transactions. The aspects of these dashboards are really easily changeable. Even right from the screen, you can just grab them and move them around, customizing them in the way that seems the best to you. Additionally, we can go through the properties and add screens to either add new elements, and there's a variety of different elements you can add, whether it's a calendar, a shortcut, new reports, or features. Pretty much anything that's available within the system, a smart link to a web page, can all be customized and added directly to your dashboard. The other thing that we can do is manage our dashboard's security, appearance, column width, grouping as far as users, and then permissions to access them. So not to spend too long on it, but just a brief overview of how we can use our dashboards in Intacct to navigate through the system. The next thing I want to talk about, which is core to Intacct's financial management, is its dimensions. And in order to do that, I'm going to switch over to a couple slides real quick to display this to everyone. Imagine if you had the following data access and you wanted to track it across multiple campuses, departments, and funds. If you assigned the displayed numbering scheme for each of these elements, you would come up with 75 unique accounts. Considering that that's just for one GL or expense account, if you had up to 50 different expense accounts, you could potentially have 3,500 different unique combinations to manage and capture your data. What Intacct does uniquely is by utilizing the dimension capability, you can just create just your base GL account, in this example 4,000, and choose an account by account or on an account group basis of which data points are important or dimensions. For instance, if all of your expenses you wanted to capture several dimensions, such as your fund, your grant, your church service, or your program, you can require that for that expense account only and leave less dimensional requirements for your balance sheet or contributions. The gain to your organization being an increased efficiency and a simpler and easier way to manage your chart of accounts. Moving back into the product, you may be wondering if you really can track your data on the ways that I mentioned, such as specific worship service or donation fund. The answer to that lies in Intacct's ability to customize your 7 dynamic dimensions. By going into the terminology screen, you can take the out-of-the-box dimension names and create them in whatever manner you want. And these, again, are the 7 that we could add to any data element so that as we move through the product, we could look at, was this an AP transaction by fund, or is this a GL entry that we want to require that we put the grant or department or service into. The next thing I'm going to walk through is a sample journal entry in Intacct. You can navigate across your taskbar here through all the different modules. For a journal entry, we're going to go through our general journal, and if I just clicked on the link, it would take me to all my existing journal entries, but by clicking on the plus, it takes me to a blank journal entry. Moving down through the screen, I can pick which journal. In our case, it's just going to be our general journal or our general ledger. I can put in my date or reversal date. I can put in a description. I can put in a comment to reference later or a reference number and an attachment. And we're going to get a little bit more into the attachments piece as we work through our AP. Moving through the entry itself, you'll notice for the first time here that Intacct has a built-in smart quick fill element. Really what that means is I can type in a variety of different things in these boxes. If I'm trying to locate my account 6360 or facilities expense, I can type things in like 63 to give me a list of all my accounts that start with 63, or I can type in something like FA, which it knows the only possible account is facilities expense. Moving along my entry, I can put in my debit and credit amounts. And again, working through my department, fund, and grant, I know that some of these are required. So if I wanted to do my department, I might type something like operations, and it knows that's department 500. Or for my fund, I might type in 200, and they know that that's fund D. The other thing I'd like to point out is with most screens like this in Intacct, you can edit the layout on the fly. So say it's not important to me that I'm tracking my employee dimension. I'd much rather change my program dimension. I can grab it, slide it up here, and now I'm able to enter that in without having to drop down my details box. Additionally, as you saw before, we have the capability of putting in allocation splits, fixed or variable, from this screen as well. Again, this element is one that extends through most of your data entry screens in Intacct, the ability to customize and edit your data entry options on the fly. Okay, the next process I want to go through is our accounts payable. I want to take a minute and pause on the purchasing screen right here. And the reason why I want to do that is because what you see on this screen is indicative of all of your main module screens in Intacct. We find that a lot of people really appreciate the visual representation of how the data will move through the system. To start this process, I'm going to go to my purchase requisition, and I'm going to pick my purchasing requisition operations. And you may wonder why we have a couple different purchasing requisition options. The reason being is Intacct has a built-in approval path, and depending on which requisition I choose, it will send it down a different approval path based on your organization's needs. For this example, I'm going to choose the purchasing requisition operations. What's nice about the workflow in Intacct is we're going to enter most of the data that we need to take this all the way through to our print check process right on this screen. So I'll go through my vendor, and I can just drop down a list. It's going to fill in some of the vendor-specific information. I can put in a reference like new desks. I can put in a message, so whoever this is going to, who might be my manager, Carla, I could say, Carla, here are the desks we discussed, and as well as an attachment. So I'm just going to attach what I call a classroom chair here, and I'll show you on the next step why that's useful. Moving down to our entries, it's very similar to our journal entry. I can go in here and type either alphanumeric, so chair. I can put in my quantity, a price, and then go through and again match data elements. If I know this is going to be for Fund B, and I know it's for my education program, and it may be for a special or other church service, I can select all of those. I want to take a minute to stop here to point out that this entire time I've been logged in but as a user named employee. What's important to realize is if you have a segmented AP process or you have people in different locations, because of its cloud positioning, this employee will now submit this purchasing requisition. What that's doing on the back end is it's letting the next person in line know that that purchasing requisition is now out for their approval. So I'm going to actually switch my users, and I'm going to go over to the manager, who's Carla Grace. Carla has now just got an email that says there is a purchasing transaction out there for your approval. She goes down here to her approved purchasing transactions, and you can see the requisition that I just put in. If she knows what it is, if she knew how it was coming, she could just go right ahead and click and approve this. But if she was unaware or wanted to look more into it, she can also drill from this screen. And this is going to take into the data that we just entered on the requisitioning side. So we can see who it was by, we can see the history that it's gone through, and we can see what the item is. Even better, we can view what the item actually looks like if there's a specific picture or a bill or anything in any of your transactions. By clicking this attachment feature, it's going to take our stored image in the cloud and allow Carla, the manager, to see exactly what it is that she's approving. So Carla's gone through all of this. She's happy with her transaction. We're going to take her back to the approval screen, and we're going to click Approve. She can put a comment in there as well to send back and just say, this looks great. And I press my Done button, and then that's it for our Carla example. So there, the manager got the requisition. She reviewed it. She looked at the attachment. She reviewed the price, and she's now sent it back down to her AP person. And that's who we're returning to here. Now I'm back in as the employee, and I can drop down from my purchasing, just view my purchasing transactions. What it's going to do is it's going to take me into the screen, and we can now see that we have our requisition for our new desks, and it's pending right now as a purchase requisition. What's nice here is it gives us the ability to convert it either directly into an invoice or to a purchase order. If you use a purchase order process, you can turn it into a purchase order and submit. If you use a direct vendor invoice, you order it online, you can convert it to an invoice, which is what we're going to do here. What's important to notice is now I'm escalating it from our purchasing module to our accounts payable module. And in order to be able to do that, really the only thing I'm going to want to add is the vendor document number, so basically our invoice number from the vendor we purchased from. When I click Post, it's going to transfer from the purchasing module to the accounts payable module. So we've just created a bill by only adding one field in our accounts payable. Looks like we've had something come up if we've changed the GL here. Now that we're in our accounts payable, see if I can't get that to go back through. I think it's telling me that it's requiring an additional field here. I apologize for that. Yeah, it looks like for that GL account, again, a good example of how if you don't put in the required field, it's not going to let us take that transaction. So we've put in our department now, and now I can go to my Select Bills to Pay. This is our first view of the filter screen in Intacct. Whenever we're going to look at a list of bills or transactions, it's going to let us use certain filters to narrow down our results. Since I know there's only a couple in here, I'm going to leave this blank, which gives us the option of viewing them all. We can see we have our bill in here to pay. We can pick our method, whether it's a charge card, an ACH, a cash account, or a checking account, which bank account, and a variety of other options. We can select it. If for any reason this is a disjointed process and this is a different person, they can drill down on the invoice and look at the information that we've entered. And by clicking Pay in Full, it's going to fully apply a payment to this document. I've now paid this bill, and I can press Save. The very last part of this process is to print our check. So I'll come down here, I'll go to Print Checks. It's going to give us an option between either using our existing check stock or a blank MICR check, and then which checking account do we want to print this out of. I'll go right here to the check that we produced. For our Ally fold, I can pick whether I want to include stub details for myself or for the vendor as well. I can even put in a check memo.
Hey, Brian.
Yes, sir.
Got a question. Does a credit card transaction put it in liabilities?
Sure. That's all. It absolutely will. It's all depending on how you do your check card setup and our cash management. It absolutely has that offset account in the background that says if I pay with this, I'd like to put it in a liabilities account for the credit card.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Moving back to the print options, I've selected the check I wanted to print, and I'm going to click my print button. What this is going to do, it's going to give me a preview of the check as it's about to print. This kind of takes you as any other PDF document or any other web-based document where if I've looked at everything and I'm happy with what it is, I would just come down here and click print, make sure it sends to my check printer, and I have my check in hand. If I'm happy with the result as it's come out, you can see that this confirm and void box has now been checked since I've produced it. If I'm happy with it, I just press my confirm, and I've now paid my check. So that takes us all the way from our purchase requisition through our invoicing, through our bill pay, and then all the way to our printing our check. The last thing I'd like to talk about today is reports. While Intacct comes with over 100 preformed reports out of the box, I'm going to demonstrate how quickly you can put together an on-the-fly report. For this example, we're going to create an expense report by fund. I'm going to use the Intacct Financial Report Writer, which is really useful as a wizard. It'll walk you through how to create reports. We can call this expense by fund, and move to my next one, which is my rows. So the way that Intacct reporting works is it uses account groups, which can be individual accounts, groups of accounts, even things like calculated or non-financial accounts can be put into these account groups. Lets you really put together your data in any way that you want. For this example, I'm just going to pick my expenditures account group. And in my expenditures account group, you'll be able to see all the different things that make that up. So now that I've chosen my rows, I'm going to move to my columns. I'm only going to do 2 columns for this example. I'm going to have my first one, which is just a description column, which will just tell us which rows we've chosen on the report. And then I'm going to move to my actual column. The only 2 things I'm going to change here is I'm going to change this to my prior year. And then the important part, I'm going to go down here and click my expand by. What expand by is going to do is it's going to let me choose a dimension, and it's going to create a column for each of those applicable values in that dimension. In our example, it's going to be our funds. And we have a different level of detail that we can show. For this example, I'll use all levels with summary balance. Now, in interest of preserving our time and getting through the demonstration, I won't go through some of these other options, but they have things like, creating computated columns and rows, putting different filters on your reports, and really formatting and security options. I've done everything I need to do, so I'm going to click my Save and Done button. We now can see our expense by fund report. Another thing I want to draw your attention to is that any report can be produced as an HTML, which is an on-the-screen web page, a PDF, a CSV, or an Excel. Additionally, you can process and store to look at later. You can even use a scheduler to have the reports generated at a predetermined amount of time. And additionally, you can take any amount of reports that you want and put them in a report group. So if you're running monthly board financials or internal reports, you can group them together and generate them all at the same time. For this example, I'm going to use the HTML, which again is going to pull our report up as a web page. And you can see here, just like everything else, if it's blue, you can drill down on it. We can drill all the way through and get to the actual base journal entry that creates our amounts. So that's just a little bit about reporting. Obviously, the main thing I want to point out is that beyond just the financial reporting, that same ease of reporting extends through all the same depth and transparency in all modules in Intacct. For instance, you could use it to create really rich vendor reports, dimensional receivable reports, and even key financial and non-financial combinations such as your average contributions by attendance. The last thing I'm going to touch on before turning it back over is Intacct really excels as a core financial and ERP system. They've adopted a best-of-breed philosophy, meaning that they are really happy living in the financial world, but that they'd like to be able to really round out your organizational needs. And they do that through the Intacct Marketplace. The Intacct Marketplace works a lot like an application for your phone where you can kind of pick and choose different elements you may want to add. You can see here that Proclaim CRM, which is what we're on the demo today talking about, is an already integrated piece with Intacct. And you can use this or any other industry-leading software. That concludes our look at Intacct. George, do we have any other questions?
No, we're good. Thank you, Brian. Good stuff.
Absolutely. I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter.
All right. Well, we're gonna cap this off with talking a little bit about integration with our people management system called Proclaim CRM. That's a solution that does the people database, small group management, volunteer management, has a check-in system, online giving portal, all of that good kind of stuff. This is actually a screenshot from Proclaim CRM. Simple layout. You have a ribbon at the top. Looks a lot like Microsoft Office. Outlook-like menus on the left. You click on things and you easily get to where you're going. But what I'm showing on this screen right here, this is where we set up funds in Proclaim CRM. And some of the key things that you obviously would want to map is a GL account number as well as a location. And now, if we go to the next screen, this is where we do the Intacct mapping process within Proclaim CRM. And there's two types of data that are integrated. There's contribution data, of course, and then there's also event registration data. On the Proclaim CRM member portal, you have the ability to register for events, but you also have the ability to mark an event as requiring a registration fee. So you can have those payments also be sent over with separate mappings because it's probably going to go to different GL accounts. So you can see here there's lots of different, like Brian mentioned, you have up to 8 dimensions in Intacct. So here I just did a simple one. We mapped the fund to the GL account, and then we took the location ID and mapped that to the location field that we look back here. So that's how you tie those in. Now you can also define a constant value. So perhaps you want to have a, it's not on your Proclaim form, but you want that value to go over, you could plug in a constant. And you can also set a default value. So if that value happened to be blank, you could then have it default. Now, I will say in Proclaim, you can also make fields required or not required if you wanted to prevent the situation where you would have a blank field. So these are both actually optional fields. You've got to have the little red asterisk to make it required. Then you generate a process, you generate deposits, and that will group everything up and flag the contributions to be marked that they've been sent over to the accounting system. And it does things by date and by payment type, and then sends it over as a cash transaction to Intacct. So it's a very easy process. Just click a couple buttons and your integration is done. So are there any questions about that? We'd be happy to talk in more detail about the people management side. We also do webinars for that. But we're going to pause now, and if there's any questions in general, implementation, costs, related timelines, you name it. It's all fair game. Well, I don't see any questions coming in, so we do have one. What is the Intacct cost per month? The Intacct cost per month, there's a base system that's $210 per month, and then each user is $210 per month. So there's also other types of users. If you're just going to view dashboards or such, you can get users that are down to $50 a month. But the $210 a month is the power user that can do everything. And then the next question I see on that is, does Proclaim CRM interface with Dynamics GP? And the answer to that is yes. It's more of an export-import format. It's not automated as we do have with Intacct. We're considering that, but we have clients actually using the GP and Proclaim CRM both today rather successfully. So any other questions? The Dynamics GP cost. Dynamics GP cost is licensed a little differently. You have a starter pack that includes 3 users and all the modules. That's a straight up $5,000. and then it's 18% annual maintenance per year based on that 5,000. It's actually a pretty good bundle. Then you can add additional users for 2,000 each, and likewise they also have lower cost and actually free now users if you just need people to log in and do things on their web portal as opposed to being a full power user. So in the end, we find that both solutions are pretty comparable cost-wise. It's just the payment model's a little different.
I think there was one more question above that one as well, George.
Do you do a data, ooh, I skipped a question. Do you do a data transfer from Shelby to Intacct? Yes. Shelby is a common accounting system that we replace, so simply, yes. So, and we can also do the people. We're actually doing our first full Shelby to Intacct, and we're already running Proclaim CRM for the people, and now they're implementing the Intacct portion now. And are there budgeting modules? Yes, and you didn't specify which one you're talking about, so I'll answer to both. They both out of the box. They both out of the box offer, Excel-based budgeting, exports and imports. That's what we find most churches are, use. You can export, you can tweak it, and then re-import it. There are add-on budgeting modules at additional cost for both that are, you build them on the bottom up and you can create formulas and import those. But honestly, those are overkill for even the, honestly, most of the mega churches that we work with. Because the time you spend setting all that up, you could have just done it in a spreadsheet. So, and then those, it'll set up budget ledgers that you can then use for BVA or budget versus actual reporting. Current year, prior year, budget versus actual differences and such. So, any other questions? We still have a few minutes. It's 2:57 by my clock. Okay, well, before we go, Janice, Nick says hello. And we will send you a copy of the presentation. So we'll do that. We'll PDF it up and send it to you so that you can have it to refer to. And likewise, if you have any questions at all or would like additional information, you can contact us at the above 888 number or sales@proclaimcrm.com, and or you can. Our regular website is the innerdynartist.com, and then our sister website is for the people management is proclaimcrm.com. So I'm in charge of sales for accounting and people management for both, so this will come to my department, and I'd be happy to follow up with you. So I appreciate everybody having some time to spend with us this afternoon. I hopefully look forward to talking to you not too long from now. Take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.